Mom is on the phone and the child is 4 years old and she's home and let's say she's drawing a picture. She goes up to mom and says, "Look, mom, I drew this picture for you." She's on the phone and she's like, waving the child away. "I'll be right with you." And now she's finishing her picture and she goes back to mom, "Look, mom." And mom's still on the phone going, "No, I will come to you." Well, then mom forgets because mom had to do laundry or get ready for dinner or whatever next. Mom forgets. The child now is in her room and she says to herself, "I need to work harder to be seen and heard because mom is now forgetting me." And now you know what that looks like as an adult? You're at work and you're organized, you got all your work done, and then you notice that your coworkers aren't quite and they might be struggling. So you'll go over and you'll say, "Hey, you need some help?" You'll help that coworker, you'll help another coworker, and you'll go home exhausted. And you're saying, "Why am I working harder than everyone else?" It starts exactly like where they've already owned they have to work harder to be seen and heard, and it'll be interpreted as nobody's working as hard as them.
Do you think everything stems from our childhood?
Absolutely. But it doesn't have to be emotional and physical. That's the thing. I'll have clients come to me and I'll say, "Okay, I'm picking up a mom block." And even before I get that out, they'll say, "Oh no, my mom was perfect." And I said, "That's even better." And I'll tell you why. Right. I had this woman who her dad was absolutely perfect, walked on water. He was an international kind of mortgage money guy who traveled the world. And when he came home, it could be months at a time. But when he came home, it was dad and daughter tied like together, peanut butter and jelly. And then dad, because he did this world thing, he would have to read the paper quite often. So once he got home, he played with her, caught up with her life. He would read the paper. And in my mind's eye, I'm like, "Oh my God, I could see dad reading the paper and they would play peekaboo." She would get under the paper, peekaboo, and then they would play and he would read the paper, but they would play. And so it was all this unconditional love. So now here she is as an adult. She's got partners and she says, "I don't understand. I can't keep a partner." I said, "Really?" And I said, "I know what's going on." I said, "You are trying to recreate the same feeling that dad gave you with the unconditional love." And I said, "I bet you say to your guys, because they weren't staying very long, that when they would say, 'I love you,' you'd say, 'Really?' Or 'Really? Do you really?' Or 'You don't text me enough.'" Spot on. They would text her all day long. They would say, "I love you." And they'd say, "I don't believe you." That was her response because she wasn't feeling that absolute unconditional feeling. So she would sabotage with these comments, thinking that they would give her more and keep giving her more until she could fill that unfulfilled hole of trying to recreate that ever essence of being totally connected. She'll never do it. So she kept sabotaging and sabotaging. Dad was perfect.
That's interesting. Like inside of like even what we just said about not having instruction manual, right? It makes it challenging as a parent to figure out what the best course of action is. But then, even as an adult, where you have your own consciousness and beliefs, at what point do you assume responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, and
Yeah.
whether or not they're in alignment or disaligned with the version of life that you're looking for?
Yeah. So, from what I heard you just say, at what point do you take ownership for your thoughts? Right? Is that
Hmm.
that's okay. So, you always have to take ownership for all your thoughts. But what I'm thinking you're saying is that those thoughts could be somebody else's thoughts. Like, meaning that limiting belief that comes in saying you're not good enough because dad was saying, "Are you using your head?" when you were in, you know, fourth grade, and you're trying to get the 1 plus 1 and you keep putting 3. And I apologize. I'm not nothing against the men. I was just because my partner did that to our youngest child. And now she has self-esteem issues and she's a procrastinator because he would go over to her and say, "Are you using your head?
Right.
Are you thinking this through?" So it would make her doubt her own thoughts, her own thinking, her own, her homework, instead of saying, "Let's just talk this through." And maybe putting two apples on the table, or giving her a form of a vision. But then he would always start with, "Are you using your head?" So that would make her think she's never using her head.